Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly believe they can do what they want, when they want, because nobody else matters. And in today's episode, people are sharing their stories about their horrible Karen neighbors. And Opie tells a story about the time his neighbor kept stealing his water. Ain't that something? Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So here goes. This happened a long time ago, before doorbell cameras and security cameras were a thing. My parents lived in a pretty large gated community, and at the time, the house was undergoing some major renovations. So as with any renovations, you get junk that needs to be thrown out. So my parents decide to get one of those giant shipper container things that can be taken off and put onto a back of a truck to throw the trash out. We got the container pretty late in the evening after the construction people had left. Therefore, it was left empty for the night. The next morning, however, we woke up to the container being a third full of random crap and a big queen-size bed that looked to be about 30 years old. So of course, my parents were pissed beyond belief that someone would just dump their trash in our container after we paid for it. Here's where it gets good though. I was looking into the container, just staring in disbelief, when I saw something sticking out of one of the trash bags. Lo and behold, it was a letter with the perpetrator's name and address on it. I did some more digging in the bag, of course, to make sure it wasn't just a single letter, and I found over a dozen pamphlets, spam letters, etc. with the exact same name and address on it. We found out the address was down the road from us, not too far away. So what do? Well, that night, me, my brother, and my father decide to return to these people all the trash they so graciously left in our container. But since they were inconsiderate enough to dump it in our container, we decide to spread out the garbage bags and stuff all over the driveway and in front of their cars, so they couldn't leave without cleaning it up. My brother and I parked our car not too far from the house early next morning, and we saw the woman absolutely fuming when she opened her garage door and saw all the garbage bags and crap back on her driveway. It was pretty sweet, and the thing is, the neighbors did not even come and thank us for returning their stuff. How rude. Yeah, I bet those neighbors did not expect to wake up to that. And I love the fact that Opie's family got to return all that trash to the rightful owners, because a lot of the times, people would be straight out of luck when stuff's dumped on their property. But yeah, this is such a common thing, guys. People see giant garbage bins and they think the exact same thing. Oh, a place to put my garbage. Some inconsiderate, entitled people, I tell you. So I live in Asia, and I just purchased a new house. Now, the previous owners were family friends who needed cash urgently, and they haven't been living in my country for nearly 3 years. So I got the place for a great price in the middle of a capital city. The sale was finalized at the start of this month, and I moved in right after. The house was definitely a fixer-upper, as the previous owners had left mid-renovation, and the main door was locked with a padlock, not even a door lock. The house also had no gate, meaning anyone could just walk right on in. The first day I moved in, somebody's bike was parked in the garage. I just parked it on the road, and on the same day, I had a gate installed. An angry man was knocking on my gate later, and I didn't bother answering. But through my window, I could see him giving up and taking the bike after 15 minutes. So already, I wasn't digging the neighborhood. But I didn't have any incidents after that, aside from people not knowing that this was no longer an abandoned house. So my gate was blocked a lot, but a no parking sign on my gate fixed that issue. Well, last week, I was having a shower in my bathroom, and I noticed my water pressure was lower than usual. I also heard my next door neighbor's water pump going. Now, this neighbor was an older guy, and he lived in a 3-story house. The first being the lowest and the one he lived in. The other 2 floors were rented to tenants. Now, this guy wasn't happy about the house being sold, and he voiced many concerns to my friends, the previous owners. The guy was super angry about it, and my friends did warn me, but I thought there was no way he was going to do anything. And yeah, he didn't. So with this living situation, a water pump is needed to pump the water to the tanks on the roof, since the public supply's pressure is not enough to get it up 3 stories. Now, I heard the water pump going, and immediately I was suspicious. And sure, coincidences exist, but it wouldn't hurt to check it out. I waited till his pump turned off and then turned on a different tap in the house, and sure enough, the pressure was back to normal. This made me even more suspicious, but if the guy was stealing water, it also made sense. The water bills had been going up over the years this house wasn't lived in, but the house also had some major water leaks, so it was chalked up to that, even if the bills were too high to be caused by just leaks. Now it's starting to make sense. At some point in the last 3 years, this old miser thought that he'd save the cost of paying for water, and he waltzed onto the property and he's siphoning water from my lines. Now I couldn't find exactly where he was siphoning water from, but after checking my pressure multiple times, I was pretty sure. So I sat on it for a few days, thinking if I should confront him, go the legal path, or just let it be. With that said, water in my country is very cheap. My total bill, with washing my car every week, with regular showers, dishes, and watering my garden, only costs like $5 per month, even with the neighbor also stealing some of it. But it wasn't how much I was paying or who was paying for it. It's about entitled old people who think they're deserving of using other people's resources without paying for it, and then getting away with it. This did not sit right with me, and I really wanted to teach him a lesson. So what I did was really simple. I just turned off my water from the mains. I wouldn't have to break into his property, nor would I be breaking any laws. It was the best way of getting back at him without needing to get too complex. So on Monday, I waited till the pump flicked on, and then turned off the water supply. Now, the way household tanks work in my country is there's a ball valve in the tank, which detects the level of water and then turns on the pump. If this level doesn't increase, the valve stays open, which electronically sends a signal to the pump to stay on, until the level gets to a point at which the valve closes and also shuts off the pump. However, the level wasn't increasing, and anyone knows that starving a pump of water isn't a good idea. This way, my expectation was I'd burn out his pump and cause issues with his tenants. What I didn't account for was that his pump running constantly would mess up the fuses by constantly drawing power overnight and absolutely destroying his wiring. If he decided to upgrade his household wiring to a more modern standard, this would have been prevented, but this house clearly still had 90s era wiring. At around 3 a.m., I heard all the residents in the house waking up, and they were talking in hushed voices about why it's just their house in the neighborhood that doesn't have power or water. I found out about the power part because the tenants devolved into shouting at their landlord. And here's the thing, our tenant protection laws are very important, and water and power are classed as essential, even on a state level. Cutting those services are grounds for lawsuits, unless due to weather or some other unavoidable reason. In this case, the landlord's responsible for keeping the house wiring up to date and in good condition, alongside the supply of water. So the tenants were of course not happy, and one of them immediately moved out 2 days later when it was informed that the water and power will not be returning the very same day this happened. Both tenants in the 2 floors lodged a complaint with the police, and if a person is in clear breach of laws, the police have the authority to fine or penalize the person without court judgment. Now, it can be challenged in court if the person thinks that they were unfairly penalized, but they still have to pay the fines, and they'll only be refunded if and when the court finds the fines unlawful. So now, the landlord lost both of his tenants, and he has to pay a fine of $500, which is a lot of money in our country. He also has to refund the security deposits of both tenants, and the guy can't rent out until both the issues are fixed, which will cost him more money. As of right now, he's moving out on Sunday to his daughter's place, since he can't afford to live alone. The tenants were his only source of income, and the guy's a retired mechanic, so he has no other income. The guy came by my gate and he asked if I turned off my water. And I just said to him, oh yeah, my tank had a new leak on a pipe, and I turned it off till the next day until a plumber came by to fix the issue. And y'all, the look on his face. The guy kept a straight face, but I knew he was holding back. He just said, oh, okay, and then went back inside. Now I'm not sure if he knows I know, but I don't care because he can't do anything. I'm getting a plumber down next week to correct my plumbing and remove any pipes that leave my property. In the end, I got rid of my water issue and a neighbor who could potentially be a pain in my ass by simply flicking a tap off. 2 birds, 1 stone, I would say. Well, frickin' played. And honestly, I don't know how OP managed to keep a straight face when the guy asked OP about turning the water off, because there's no way I would have been able to. I only wish OP responded with, as a matter of fact, yes, I did turn my water off. How do you know? But yeah, even though the water is pretty cheap where OP lived, theft is theft. And I'm glad to know the cheapskate got what he deserved in the end. Here's some background. I should start by saying that I don't live in the best area of town, but it wasn't absolutely awful until the summer began, when my next-door neighbor's teenage kids and their friends had nothing better to do than to loiter around all day, be loud, and commit petty crimes. The people below my next-door neighbors had a rock thrown through their window, and several neighbors had minor car damage, like dents, from the kids sitting on cars or throwing basketballs around, hitting the cars. The kids would bang on people's doors for the fun of it, and they would often sit in large groups, clogging up the stairs to my apartment, and they would be rude when I would try to step over or around them. They also had friends over constantly and would yell and scream and fight with each other all the time. Luckily, never too late at night though. So despite all of these nuisances, I never complained about them. Sure, it was obnoxious as hell, and sure the kids were entitled as hell, and so are the parents, but I'm not really a complainer. I'm a pretty easygoing tenant. I pay my rent and bills on time, keep quiet, etc. Unfortunately, for my good neighbors and myself, their crimes escalated in severity, depending on how bored they were. The kids actually broke into my downstairs neighbor's place, and he caught them red-handed trying to steal some stuff. He called the cops, and they made a police report and everything, but somehow nothing was done. I suspect it's because he used to be cool with these neighbors, and he actually looked after and fed some of the kids, so he had a relationship with them, and they had been in his place before. Anyway, them breaking into his place really freaked me out, because my downstairs neighbor is a huge, scary-looking guy, but is actually really nice, while I'm a 22-year-old girl who lives with 2 other girls my age. So if they would break into his place, chances are they might break into mine. Now, I did contemplate getting security cameras for my place, but unfortunately, before I could, that's when it happened. A few days later, when I got up in the morning to go to school, my tire was completely flat. The kids had slashed my tire, and I was livid. I had never done anything to any of them. My tires are really good quality tires, and they were brand new. It was a gift from my dad. I barely had the money to replace my slashed tire, and I was so enraged at this point. The kids have been committing crimes, destroying property, and basically getting away with it despite complaints to management and the police. And their parents did absolutely nothing about it. I swore to my friend and myself that day that I would see to it that these horrible people get evicted. I don't care how long it took. I knew that it was only a matter of time before they did something else that would warrant it. So after I file a police report, I show the property manager the pictures of my clearly slashed tire to file a complaint. The guy promised if they got one more complaint of property damage, they would be out. I also got that security system I wanted. So what did I do? All I did was document. I documented everything. Every time they harassed the neighbors, every time they were exceptionally loud, every time they did anything that would count as a violation that I had overlooked in the past, I would document it. Easygoing me was no more, not for them. My downstairs neighbor actually did the exact same thing too, because I suspect he was sick of them too. So with that, 2 weeks passed. I hardly saw them around. All was quiet on the western front. That is, until they finally came back, thinking that they'd laid low long enough that the heat was off of them. On Sunday, I caught one of the a-holes sitting on the hood of my car, talking to a bunch of others, but they all ran away before I could yell at them to get off my car. Upon further inspection, I noticed that there was a large, shallow dent on my hood, from them repeatedly sitting on my car. Thank goodness I got the new security system, because lo and behold, I checked the footage and I saw them sitting and banging on my car. That's when I sent my manager the angriest email I could muster, while still maintaining completely respectful language, with the footage attached of course. I told him something must be done. I got an email back within a few minutes, thanking me for notifying him, and he informed me that he would serve them a notice to vacate tomorrow. They will have 30 days. As I typed this while sipping on my fresh iced tea, I could hear those stupid kids playing basketball, probably hitting more cars in the process, just shouting and laughing. I can't help but to smile, knowing they'll be gone soon. Yeah, that definitely sounds like the nightmare neighbors from hell, guys. Like, making loud noises and being obnoxious is one thing, but destroying property and breaking into people's homes and slashing tires, yeah, I'm surprised they weren't evicted sooner. And I'm also surprised that no other tenants in the building came out and went full Karen on the kids and started handing out the ass whoopings their parents should have. But yeah, jokes aside, like, where are the parents in this? Because congratulations, the lack of parenting just made you all homeless. So shortly after we bought our first home, I went next door to meet the wife who lived across the street. I had already met her kids, as she sent them to our house to play while we were unpacking, and she was excited that she had kids close to my children's age. I had my first child a month after I turned 18, and for years it was a struggle for me to find mom friends. I thought that I might have actually found my perfect opportunity for a great mom friend. Plus, she lived right across the street, which is perfect, right? So I walked over and I introduced myself to her. We got to talking, and she told me it was her and her husband's anniversary. I then asked if they had plans, and she said, well, actually, I wanted to ask you if you would do me a solid favor and watch my kids while we go on a date. Hearing her say that, I was a little taken back. Like, this woman did not know me at all, and this was literally the second thing she said to me. Also, I would never leave my kids with just anyone, but I figured that this poor lady must be desperate, and since it was her anniversary, I agreed to it. My children were 10 months and 6 years old at the time, and she had a 1, 3, and 5-year-old. Watching her kids on top of my kids was definitely a chore, but I got through it, and I was happy to give her their date night. A little after I moved in, I ended up getting a little gas station job that worked opposite my husband's shift. My husband worked the night shift, and he would get home at around 1 a.m., and I would open the gas station. I was working part-time, 32 hours a week, but I was also taking care of everything else until it was the weekend and I could get help from my husband. To say I was exhausted is an understatement. And here's where the really entitled part starts to come in. My neighbor started to watch me to see me arrive home, and she would send her kids, her very small kids, to my house to ask to play at my house. At those ages, I had to constantly supervise them. I did do it a few times though, and I realized that her kids lacked total boundaries and manners. They would eat up all my kids' snacks, tornado through my home, and when I said it was time to clean up, they would just walk out the door. Because of this, I start telling them no when they came over. After consistently telling them no, one Saturday night rolls around and my neighbor and her husband came over to say hi to my husband and I. We were chatting maybe a minute, and that's when my neighbor said to me, "You really need to watch my kids. You have no idea how hard it is." And hearing her say that, I said, "Excuse me?" I told her I do know how hard it is. I told her I first became a mother just 5 months after I graduated high school. I told her that I'd been working 32 hours a week, waking up at 3 a.m. every single day. She then interrupts me there by saying that me going to work is a break, so watching her kids would be no big deal. She was a stay-at-home mom, so she has to deal with her kids all the time, and she needs a break. I told her that in the situation I was personally in, being a stay-at-home mom would be much easier. I was still doing all the work that I did when I stayed home, but then I have to go to work. She then twisted it around like I was saying that being a stay-at-home mom is easy, which it isn't. And she called me judgmental, and she stomped off saying I don't understand. And here's the thing, if she would have showed any interest of wanting to be my friend versus someone who just wanted to use me, I probably would have helped her to my own detriment. But after that, we really didn't talk. Man, reading this post, I was so annoyed for OP. Like, how dare you have all those kids and expect complete strangers to babysit them? And the thing is, they had the audacity to get angry when OP wouldn't babysit for free. Like, it just sucks so bad that OP wanted a friend and ends up getting an entitled Karen as a neighbor who keeps sending her kids over all the time for free childcare. Like, honestly, it boggles my mind how some parents would even do that. Here, go play at a complete stranger's house. Who cares what they're like? because mommy needs a break. Okay, so I bought a house in a community without an HOA because I wanted my home to be my home, and that includes making it look the way I want. I also chose a neighborhood that already has fun, colorful houses instead of those plain earth tones. I finally got to the point where I could repaint my house, so I pick a soft peachy color with sage, blue, and soft and dark pink accents. It's fun and colorful without being too out there. If you Google the colors blue, sage, peach, you'll see a similar palette. With that said, my neighbor Paul effing hates it, and the guy's been complaining ever since we started the project. He's also made his opinion known that he hates our front lawn. The guy hates the wildflowers, the sunflowers, the fun garden flags, the little free library, etc. Each and every time I've told him I don't care, and truly I don't. I've also suggested a few times that maybe he would be happier in an HOA community that has control over everything and forces people into having earth-toned homes. Well, Paul got angry when I said that, and he said he's lived in his home for 15 years and he shouldn't have to move due to idiots like me who like the colorful stuff. So I tell him, okay, well you'll have to learn to live with a little color. With that said, last weekend I was putting in pavers that my niece and I painted together. They're all things like ladybugs, turtles, birds, etc. in fun colors. I adore them, and my niece is so excited that she gets to be a part of my home. And this is when Paul came over to complain again, saying it's all an eyesore, and my niece was here, so I told him, it's time for you to grow up and get the F over what I'm doing with my house. Hearing that, he got even pissier, and he told me I have no right to talk to him this way, and do I know who I'm talking to, etc. I told him to go away and get an effing life, that if he has so much free time to complain and moan about a colorful house, then maybe he should go get a hobby. At that, he stormed off, calling me a nasty piece of work. My niece was cracking up on the side, and for the record, no one in my family is uptight. We don't really care about cursing. And my niece is 15, I'm sure she says worse. Anyways, one of the neighbors came up to me, telling me that he's been flapping his yap, saying how disrespectful I am to talk to him like that. She told me that she knows he's a pain, but he's been in the neighborhood forever and it's worth being nice to him. And honestly, I don't know, is telling him to get a life that big of a deal? Am I the a-hole in this situation? Yeah, OP is definitely not the a-hole in my opinion. They chose to live in a neighborhood without an HOA telling them what to do, so they should be able to do it. And honestly, the colors they chose for their house sound quite pleasant. Like, it's not bright neon yellow or pink, so I don't know what the heck that neighbor's going on about. And this person comments, you are not the a-hole. The house's color scheme sounds gorgeous. My guess is your neighbor's more upset about the kitschy items in your front yard than the color of your house. Maybe you need some pink flamingos. And this person says, next time he comes by with a complaint, say to him, hi Paul, I put some serious thought into your criticisms over my house. I think we could come to an agreement where if you start to pay my mortgage and my bills, I will happily adjust the aesthetic of my home to your liking. We could start August 1st. Does that work for you? Otherwise, as the person paying the bills here, I'm going to continue doing what I want with my property, and I will ask you to not approach me or my property again for this matter. Or you could simply say, get effed, Paul. Up to you. Either way, you're not the a-hole here. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on this. What would you do if you were in OP shoes? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/EntitledPeople. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/malicious compliance episode, where smug Karens are running wild yet again, guys. And OP destroys her boss. It's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.